Hi, this is Keith Kelch with How to Build Your Own Home, and I want to walk you through a site that I'm going to have inspected tomorrow and what I look for in order to pass that inspection. So this is what to do to prep a foundation for inspection. Let me walk you through a couple things. This is a slab-on grade home. You notice we've got some rebar here. A lot of production builders don't use rebar because they can get away with it. Typically, the structural support of a home is on the footing part of the home, and all the trusses, all the floors, everything lands on those exterior perimeter of the foundation. And you can see that we've already got our footing already poured, and when we poured the footing, we actually stuck these stakes inside the wet concrete, perfectly in line with where that wall is going to go. So now we have our LVL board right here, which is really our foundation board, and that becomes a support for the outer perimeter of the house. Well, a lot of homes that are built, especially production builders, they just put the rebar right here. They don't put it inside the field of the home. I like to have rebar inside the foundation. It's not going to stop the cracking. It's going to control it to some degree so that you don't want to have any really bad offsets like that. You'll have some minor cracking. Again, concrete is not about if it's going to crack, it's about when it's going to crack. It's always going to crack. You can control that substantially by having control cuts and also rebar to help hold that together. I just am remodeling a basement quite a ways from here, and I walked in the basement. There were cracks everywhere. There were no control cracks cut in the concrete, and typically code requires about a 3/4 inch cut into the concrete to control that crack where you want it to crack. Anyway, I do put rebar in my homes. You can do 2 foot on center, 3 foot on center. Right now you have a 2 foot on center grid pattern inside the foundation here. A couple of things I want to walk you through so that I'm going to pass inspection. One of the things the inspector is going to look for, I've got conduit here. This here is a kitchen, and code requires that anytime you have an island, a built-in island, you have to bring power to it. So we've got some conduit underground. Now you can't just run this on top of the grid or on top of the dirt. You'll cause a serious weakness in the concrete. That concrete can crack substantially right here. So that has to be buried in the ground like you see here. We've got another section over here. We'll have a little office den. You can see that little plastic with a little black rim on top of that. That's a floor plug underneath an office. We've got some conduit running underneath there as well. All that has to be in the dirt. When it comes to rebar, you want to make sure that your rebar is at least a good distance away from that foundation. Typically the standard is, I've heard it's changed in a lot of different areas based upon your humidity factor and all those issues, is you want to have at least 2 inches away from the footing. Any kind of form, any kind of foundation form, keep that rebar away from there, because eventually water or moisture, especially like in Seattle and some other high moisture areas, that water can eventually work its way into the concrete and start rusting away at that rebar. Look at some overpasses for freeways and look at how old they are, and sometimes you can see the rebar just creeping through, and it was really, really close to the outer form of that when that was originally poured. So I always look to make sure that my rebar is pulled away from there. Inspectors are going to want to see chairs underneath a rebar. Now what's a chair? A chair is this plastic support, and that plastic support is meant to keep the rebar up out of the dirt. And again, you want to keep it so the concrete can go all the way around the rebar here. That's what that chair support is for. Now, some inspectors are going to want chairs underneath this here. But a lot of inspectors in our area know that when it's poured, we actually lift this up as we're pouring it. As we're moving forward, we lift that up. So you may want to talk with your inspector. Again, this is on the dirt, but as we pour it, we're lifting it as we're moving forward. If you do put chairs on it, you're going to bring this rebar really, really, really close to the top of the foundation of that pour, and you want to kind of keep it right there in the middle. And my concrete subcontractor is pretty good. They step in the middle, and as they're moving forward, pouring the concrete, they're lifting it up with their shovel, just popping it up 2-3 inches so it's inside the foundation. All right. The sewer or plumber is going to come and box in some of the drains, and that has to be this here's a zero threshold shower. It's a recessed shower, and so they box these in because it gives the ability to move that drain just a little bit after the foundation is poured, so that if they do need to make any adjustments, they can. And other drains, like you see here, these here have some bubble wrapping around them. This actually helps to give it a little bit of collar room, a little bit of movement in that drain. You don't want that drain completely locked up in concrete. You want to give it some flexibility so that you can make some adjustments if you need to. Same thing here with the toilet drain here. We got some good bubble wrap around that, and that will come off, and it will give it some flexibility when they do the final install later on the home. This here pad is about 3.5, closer to 4 inches thick. Now, you might want to double check on that if your subcontractor is actually going to pour a slab on grade for you. You really want to have it that 3.5 to 4 inches thick. I've seen some subcontractors get away with 2 inches thick, and you've got some serious problems in foundation. That's because they're trying to cut on concrete, and sometimes they just don't care. So double check, look at the plans, look at the engineering, what it really calls for. Sometimes it'll call for a 6-inch slab, sometimes it's a 4-inch. I've never seen anything less than 3.5 inches thick. You really want to push it to the 4 inches thick on a slab. I do a lot of slab on grade here. It's really a standard in our area. Stem walls are popular, walkout basements and whatnot. But just walk through the site, and the best thing you can do is just ask questions. A couple of other things I do over here. It's good to do this just before the slab is poured, but after the footing, you'll notice that we've already got our footings poured, which are right here. You can see the rebar that's sticking up here in the footing. Our footings are good to go. I've seen what's called a monolithic pour. That's where they pour the footing and the slab at the same time. That's very, very hard to do. A lot of times I've seen forms get blown out and you waste a lot more concrete because that concrete is squishing out underneath the form. We do it in 2 steps here. We pour our footings, put on our stakes so we have a really solid support for our forms, and then we pour the slab on top of that. We just want to make sure that our forms are down here, the footings are cleaned out. I'll come here with a blower and just blow it out so we have a really good bond with the concrete footing down below. Also consider any need for a conduit. I mentioned this before in another video. This here will be a conduit for some exterior lighting. When the concrete's poured, this is actually sticking outside the form. You don't want to put this in with the footing, you want to put it in with the whole slab. And this here will allow for opportunity to run power and some low voltage for a future swimming pool and outdoor lighting, so they can actually have a switch right here and turn things on and off right here. I've got another one over there in the garage, another conduit, and that's going to be for low voltage for sprinkler systems and whatnot. I've seen a lot of homes where they just run the sprinkler system outside the back of the wall, and it looks really tacky. You don't need to do that. If you're thinking in advance, you can put these conduits in and get that thing done as well. All this is for low voltage over here. This here is for bringing in our high power, which is a 400 amp service into this home, because we're going to put a big greenhouse, or actually some greenhouses and a barn over this way. And this here is for a power conduit to take it over there to the barn. Again, thinking in advance so you don't have this outside conduit being affixed to the outside of the home. It's buried inside the footing. It's inside the actual 2x6 wall will go right here. So the conduit's coming right up inside that wall. Again, makes it for a clean look. You're thinking in advance, you're getting things done in advance as well. And then we went ahead and got the sewer clean out. Our sewer connection was right over there. So our sewer clean out's right here. So all of our drain for sewer is coming right out that way. And typically you want to have a clean out real close to the house. Check with your local building codes. They have differences, different requirements on where that clean out needs to be. But typically it's close to the home. Sometimes it's 2 feet. I've seen it as far as 5 feet away from the home. But you want to make sure that that's there. Lots of things to consider. But the thing is the more you talk with subcontractors and plumbers and electricians and building officials. Just talk with them and be here on site. You can learn a lot. This is just some good information that I go after. There's one thing I want to show you that's actually becoming very popular. A lot of homes are building what they call an atrium or an interior garden area. This home will have an interior garden area. Now I'm going to have roof coming this way and roof coming this way, and I've got all kinds of pitch roof coming in here that's going to be draining into this little area. They're actually going to have grass inside here. And so I've got a drain over there. You can see it right over here. Inside a sleeve. So in case there was anything wrong with that pipe for whatever reason, you can actually pull a 3-inch tube through a 4-inch tube if you need to. It's that clearance in there. So we'll have all our drainage inside that pipe. Plus I got some other voltage here as well for lighting, that we can connect the drip system and everything inside here onto the landscaping electrical over here. So when you're doing a foundation, you've got to really think about all the things you want, because you're dealing with electrical issues, you're dealing with plumbing issues and concrete issues. You want to make sure you have everything underground you need. I'd come out here and sit on a chair, have a soda on a cool evening, and literally just think about all the things you would want done in advance before they pour concrete. And if you can think like that, and I do this with clients, go and sit in the house, go in each room, have a little lounge chair, have a soda, and just stare at the walls. Are all the plugs in the right place where you want them? Is everything what you want there before you put drywall, before you put the concrete, before you really seal things up? And this is a major seal. This is, this is concrete. It's where you want to make sure everything's in place before that concrete is poured, because you don't want to cut into the concrete. That's a real mess. I'm doing that on a remodel right now. So hope that helps you out. This is Keith Kelch with How to Build Your Own Home, talking to you about what to prepare for before you have a foundation inspection.